Have you ever stared at someone you loved and realized they weren't ever really there for you? That's exactly where I was, 38 weeks pregnant, standing in our bedroom doorway, watching my husband pack his suitcase for a Vegas trip with his friends. Our bed, where we once dreamt about the future, now held only a half-zipped bag and a pile of broken promises. "Relax," he said, like I was overreacting. "You're not due for 2 more weeks. If anything happens, just drive yourself to the hospital." Just drive myself, alone, while carrying the life we created together. His words felt like a slap I didn't see coming. I could feel our baby kick, like she knew I needed reassurance. And there he was, already halfway out the door with a smile and a shrug. "Everything's about to change," he joked, as if our daughter was the end of his freedom, not the beginning of our family. As soon as the door clicked shut, silence swallowed the house. It was just me and my baby, and that silence screamed louder than any fight we ever had. That night, lying in bed, I whispered to my belly, "We deserve better than this." I had no idea how powerful those words would become. But fate doesn't wait for perfect timing. By midnight, I felt the first real contraction. Then another. And another. I grabbed my phone. Called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Finally, I left a message, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm in labor. Please call me back." Instead, I got a photo of him and his buddies clinking beers at a club, a blonde draped over his arm, captioned, "Best weekend ever." I felt the pain tear through me, but not just physical pain. It was heartbreak layered on top of labor. I called my sister, Emma, and she was there within half an hour, hugging me like she could hold me together while I fell apart. We got in the car and drove to the hospital. Me gripping the seatbelt through each wave of pain. Emma holding my hand like an anchor in a storm. Inside that delivery room, something shifted in me. No, I wasn't alone. I had my sister. I had a kind nurse who treated me with warmth instead of pity. I had myself, my strength, my breath, my will. And I had my daughter, fighting to enter the world with every contraction. And I knew, whatever happened next, I was going to rise. 12 hours of labor. 12 hours of sweat, tears, pain, and awakening. When the doctor finally said, "It's time to push," I felt paralyzed, not by fear of birth, but by the fear that I wasn't enough. That maybe, just maybe, I couldn't do it without him. But then I looked at Emma. She hadn't left my side once. Her hand was in mine, steady and sure, and she said, "You've already done the hard part. You've got this." And she was right. With every breath I pushed, out came the anger, the disappointment, the years of emotional neglect. And in their place came a tiny cry that cut through everything. "Little girl. My little girl." They placed her on my chest, and everything else faded. Her dark hair, her warm skin, the fierce way she cried. Like she already knew how to fight for herself. I named her Lily because, like the flower, she was born in pain but full of beauty. I didn't hear from Tom until much later. A single text. "Flight delayed. Hope everything's good. No, how are you? No, did you have the baby?" Just an update on his travel plans, like this was business as usual. And in that moment I knew. The man I thought I'd build a life with couldn't even be bothered to check if his child had entered the world. And that told me everything. When he finally showed up at the hospital, dragging his suitcase and smelling like stale alcohol, he looked shocked to see his daughter already here, asleep in Emma's arms. He looked between us and asked, "Why didn't you call me?" I did. 3 times. Then I texted. Then I stopped. 'Cause I finally realized. If someone wants to be there for you, they will. He tried to play the victim, saying I'd ambushed him, that I should have waited. I didn't even argue. I just handed him an envelope from my lawyer with a calm he didn't expect. Inside, a separation agreement, custody plans, a record of his Vegas withdrawals, proof that I wasn't playing games. This wasn't revenge. This was responsibility. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just stood there for the first time in our relationship, with no one to defend him. My parents didn't even speak to him. My dad just said, I think you've said enough. And that was it. When I left the hospital with Lily, I didn't go home. I went to Emma's. Because home isn't a place where you cry alone in bed while your husband parties with strangers. Home is where you're safe, where you're seen, where your baby's first smile means everything, and no one calls it an inconvenience. And that's where our new life began. The first night in Emma's guest room felt surreal. The space was small, just enough for a crib, a changing table, and my suitcase, but for the first time in forever I could breathe. There was no tension, no cold silences, no walking on eggshells. Just me, my newborn daughter, and a quiet that finally felt peaceful. I'd taken only what belonged to me when I left. Clothes, baby supplies, the hospital bag. Everything Tom and I had bought together. I left it behind. He could keep the furniture. I was building a life from scratch, and it was going to be one worth living. 3 weeks later, I was standing in a realtor's office with Lily sleeping on my chest and Emma beside me, helping me hunt for a place of our own. The apartment we found wasn't big, but it had everything we needed. Warm light, a quiet neighborhood, and a little window seat in the second bedroom that I imagined Lily sitting in one day, lost in books. I signed the lease that same day. Back at Emma's, I finally texted Tom to tell him we could meet about visitation. He responded instantly, wanting to know where I'd moved. Kept it vague. Boundaries were no longer negotiable. We'd use a mediator and we'd meet on my terms. The co-parenting meetings were tense at first. Tom wanted overnights immediately. Said no. Our daughter didn't know him. He hadn't been there. He had to earn that trust, not just from me but from her too. So we compromised. Supervised visits at my parents' house. 2 hours 3 times a week. If he showed up, stayed consistent, and proved he was serious, we'd consider more later. Surprisingly, he didn't argue. Maybe it was the reality of the situation finally sinking in. Or maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand what being a father actually meant. And while he took baby steps, I took big ones. He updated my resume. Applied for jobs. And one day at a coffee shop, I ran into Mark, an old colleague I hadn't seen in years. He spotted Lily in the stroller, and before I knew it, we were catching up over lattes. You know, he said, we're looking for someone to lead the digital marketing division. You'd be perfect. My heart nearly stopped. This was what I used to dream about before I gave everything up to support Tom's business. Now, the opportunity to reclaim my career. It felt like fate handing me a second chance. That night, I rocked Lily to sleep in the apartment we now called home. I whispered to her, "Things are changing, little one. Mama's building something." And I meant it. I took the job. It wasn't just a job, it was a declaration. I was no longer the woman who dimmed her light to keep a man comfortable. I was building a career, a home, and a future that belonged to Lily and me. Tom tried testing boundaries here and there, showing up late to visits, asking for last-minute changes, but I held firm. Not out of spite. Out of protection. Stability mattered, and Lily deserved consistency. When he asked to push a visit because of a client meeting, I simply replied, "Then we'll reschedule." Her routine comes first. Old me would have adjusted everything. New me didn't flinch. And slowly, I started noticing a shift. Tom began showing up on time, bringing diapers, asking questions about Lily's naps and bottle preferences. He even signed up for a parenting class, without me reminding him. He wasn't perfect, but for the first time he was trying. Not to win me back, but to be present for his daughter. One afternoon, Lily spiked a fever during one of his visits. I expected panic, drama, kiss. Instead I got a message. Gave her Tylenol. Temps 100.2. Called her doctor. Monitoring now. I rushed over anyway, but when I walked in, she was sleeping peacefully in a crib he'd set up himself. The room was tidy. Her favorite stuffed bunny, one I thought we'd lost, was tucked in beside her. And Tom. He was calm, tracking her temperature on his phone like it was second nature. "Thanks for not giving up on me," he said. I didn't say he was forgiven, but in that moment I saw growth. And growth matters. Weeks passed. Lily got stronger and so did I. My blog, something I started just to cope, began gaining traction. Other single moms reached out, saying my story helped them feel less alone. One even said, "You reminded me what I'm capable of." That message made me cry harder than any breakup ever had. And then something wild happened. Publisher emailed. They'd found my blog. They loved the voice, the journey, the rawness. They wanted to turn it into a book. Me. A woman who once sat crying on a bathroom floor wondering how she'd raise a child alone, now being asked to inspire others with her story. Lily giggled in her bouncer as I read the message. "Look at us," I whispered. "Look how far we've come." 1 year. That's how long it had been since I watched my husband walk out the door with a suitcase and a smirk, telling me everything was going to change. He had no idea how right he was. Lily's first birthday was a warm, breezy afternoon at the local park. She sat in her high chair, face covered in cake, curls bouncing as she laughed. My parents were there. Emma and her husband. Even Tom and his parents too. We come a long way. Tom had kept his promises. He took the parenting class, joined a support group, even started volunteering at a local youth center. He still had a long road ahead, but he was walking it, and not just for show. For real. He wiped frosting from Lily's face with the ease of someone who finally understood what it meant to be there. We weren't together. We probably never would be again. But we were co-parents, and somehow, that was enough. When my dad called for a speech, I hadn't planned to give one. But looking around, at the family we built, the woman I'd become, and the little girl who sparked it all, I knew exactly what to say. "A year ago," I began, lifting Lily onto my hip, "I thought everything was falling apart. But it turns out, sometimes falling apart is how you rebuild." People smiled. Tom even nodded. "This year has taught me that strength isn't being invincible. It's knowing when to ask for help. That love isn't always holding on. It's knowing when to let go. And that motherhood doesn't make you smaller. It makes you more." I kissed Lily's cake-sticky cheek, and everyone clapped. Later that evening, I sat on our apartment balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky gold and pink. Lily was asleep inside, the soft hum of her sound machine echoing through the monitor. My phone buzzed. Emma, of course. "Ready to meet David yet? You know, the single dad from accounting." I smiled and typed back, "Ask me again in a few months." Then I opened my blog, cursor blinking on a blank page. I started to write. To the woman sitting alone, wondering if she can start over. Yes, you can. To the mother crying into her pillow, unsure she's enough, you are. And to the version of me who thought this was the end. It wasn't. It was the beginning of the best chapter yet. And just like that, I hit publish. Not because everything was perfect, but because I finally knew we were going to be just fine. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever had to rebuild your life from rock bottom, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they're stronger than they think. One day at a time, you've got this.